why we're here in the first place. Why have all of you come? Could I just see a show of hands? How many of you have heard the word shamanism? Okay. For how many is it a new word or a new idea? Okay. How many have known about it for a long time? Okay. How many of you practice some form of it? Nice. Yeah, that's good. When I started out 30 years ago, a little more than that actually. 30 years makes me sound young. It's 36 years ago. Hardly anybody knew that word except scholars. And the word entered English language in the late 1700s. The first anthropologists who were missionaries in Russia, Siberia, Central Asia, saw this word and applied it to any form of medicine man, medicine woman, any form of an ecstatic healer. So the word was kind of stolen from an indigenous culture in Russia. And it's a little odd, and I feel bad about it, but there's nothing we can do about it now. Okay, you're a devout Jew, and you have a rabbi in your congregation. You might be offended if somebody started calling themselves a rabbi that had never been to rabbinical school, that came from a different culture and didn't observe your ways. It must seem really odd. Of course, many of the Russian and Siberian tribes, they have different names. There's Kamis and Samis and so on. But the word shaman comes from the Tungusic tribes. It belongs to those peoples. Yet it's entered in English language. My teachers in North America, Mexico, and South America all use the word. So what is this word about? First I'll say something about that. Now, there are many forms of spiritual healers or indigenous spiritual healers that use the word in a very loose sense, because if you do sacred ceremony, if you believe in some version of the divine or the Great Spirit, and that's part of your healing work, you might call yourself a shaman. But the way the scholars defined it, they wanted to track it historically around the planet. And they did it by identifying certain practices or techniques that originated in Siberia, so they thought, and then moved across the Himalayas into Central Asia, down into Africa, across the Bering Straits, down to North America and South America. So by tracking it with this one technique, they thought they could understand the spread of shamanism around the planet. Not really entered into that view was the idea that it might spontaneously occur and arise. But what the word has come to mean in a strict sense is a shaman is a specialist in the sacred who enters a trance state or an ecstatic state, or you might say a very powerful altered state, and takes a visionary journey into the other world. We could call it the spiritual world, the non-ordinary reality. And shamans tend to envision this as a three-storied cosmos, with an upper world, a lower world, and of course our everyday world. But these three worlds aren't separate. They are inside each other. So that we all have an underworld inside us and an upper world, and we're all right here living it. So this three-storied cosmology is really the shaman's conception of the divine. You heard me speak of the great spirits, but in the shamanic idiom, the great spirit can be communicated with through these three realms and through the different spirits or beings or images that the shaman interacts with in trance. So this journey that shamans take into this other world is a form of prayer or a form of meditation. But think of it as a form of intercessory prayer. Do you know that word, intercessory? Something a pastor or a priest might do to pray for somebody who's sick or in trouble. Oh, Lord, please help them, my friend. So shamans do these journeys often to help other people. or help Mother Earth, or help animals, plants, and this sort of thing. So it's a form of intercessory prayer. And unlike the Christian tradition that I was raised in, the divine is not conceptualized as something up there and outside of us. It's considered to be inside us, but also inside everything. And when you go into a shamanic journey, you're actually going into the heart space, where the divine is always present. The great Lakota medicine man and holy man, Nicholas Black Elk, he said, the Great Spirit dwells in the heart of every creature, even the tiniest ant. And so it behooves us to be humble and reverent before all life. And we can do that when we can see it as sacred. It's not sacred because we say so. It's sacred because the Great Spirit is in every being, in the center of every being. So a shaman, in the strict definition, is someone who enters an ecstatic state, takes this kind of intercessory journey into the other worlds, usually to benefit someone. If not himself, other people. If not other people, other creatures on the planet. They might even work with hurricane and disaster sorts of things. In the past, they tried to control weather with shamanism and locate game. And apparently it worked pretty well. Might seem a little strange to our modern ears that someone could control weather or locate lost game. But my friend Eagle Man, Lakota medicine man, who and I worked together back in the 1990s, he was a student of the great medicine man, Old Fool's Crow, Teton Sioux medicine chief. He, I want to tell you, is the Dalai Lama, was, of the Lakota peoples. Much more high regard than Black Elk. He lived a strict holy man's life. He refused to learn English. Black Elk did, and then Black Elk got converted to Catholicism and then lost some of his ways and spent the rest of his life trying to get back. But Old Fool's Crow refused to. He wanted to be a hollow bone for the Great Spirit, and he was not going to let some white man convert him into some other way. And so he spent his whole life talking the Lakota language. And he said that he saw his role to be that of a hollow bone, which is like a channel, and to be a shaman. He didn't use that word, but Wuchasawakan was his word, for it means holy man as well as medicine man. Pajuda refers to a person who's not a holy person, but they're a shamanic healer, or medicine man or medicine woman. But Wichasa means holy man, so something like a saint, not just a shamanic healer. And this man used all of his ceremony, his daily sweat lodges, his peace pipes, to clean himself out every day so that he could be a hollow bone of the Great Spirit. And then the Great Spirit did the diagnosing and the healing. And people would come from all over North America to his little place and stay with him. People with cancer, people with mental disorders, people suffering great loss. And they would live with him a while on his land, do sweat lodges. He might tell them to make 405 prayer ties before he even talks to them. So he would use this time to really be sure his patient was serious and attuning with him, so the Great Spirit could flow down the peace pipe and flow down through his body and do the diagnosing and healing. That's a very, very shamanic idea. And he did take journeys. He did it in Sweat Lodge. And he's written about that and